Greetings, everyone. It's a beautiful Thursday, the 14th of August 2025. I trust that you are well and that you are coping with what's on your plate for this day. I began these videos describing the increase of earthquakes in the earth, and the news was full of it. And that I took from Matthew 24 in the New Testament. I then went on to a series on the tribulation, where I talked about the pre-tribulation, the mid-tribulation, and the post-tribulation. And then I also did a series on safety and security. And then also interspersed between these series that I've done were what I call side notes, which was on topics, relevant topics of the time. But today I want to reiterate my point at the end of my talks on the tribulation, the falling away described in the Bible. There's a belief, as I explained in the last video of the tribulation series, that believers will be whisked away, will be rescued in the tribulation period. This is the pre-tribulation people. And there's a huge group of Christians in the Christendom that believe intrinsically on this concept that believers, the church, is not destined to suffer in the tribulation period. And I was of the view that this pre-tribulation was error, and I want to reiterate now the reason why it's so important to be careful about this belief system. You know, the pre-tribulation people have all their scriptures sorted out. They believe they got support from the Bible, according to them, and they use many of the stories in the Bible to support their view. One of the stories is found in Genesis about Lot and his family. You'll remember that Lot was settled in the area which was afterwards called Sodom and Gomorrah. And this city was rebellious and very sinful. And Lot and his family were rescued by two angels at the very time that God was going to destroy the towns. Now, they based their viewpoint on this, that since Lot and his family were rescued from destruction, the believers of the future will be rescued in the rapture, which we find in 1 Thessalonians, and there's other references in the Bible about this rapture, which is like catching away when Jesus Christ comes to fetch the church or the believers. What they failed to see, this group, is that the book of Genesis, there's more to that story. It doesn't say all, because in a sense, much of the Bible is almost like poetry. It's almost like a summary of something. They don't tell you the full detail. And with the result is a literal understanding of that part is not sufficient. What I would say is that Lot and his family, as righteous people, suffered over a period of time. It wasn't just on a day and they suffered, the persecution of seeing the sin in these two cities. It could have been years, it could have been decades that they suffered. They had to stomach the open rebelliousness, the open sin of sodomy. I'm not going to explain to you what is sodomy at this stage. Those of you who study and those of you who are interested and don't know this will just go and Google it or look in the dictionary what actually happens in sodomy. But the city of Sodom and Gomorrah is named after this practice that took place there. But the fact that the men came to the town, the men of the town came at night to demand Lot's guests to sodomize them, means that that was a common practice of the men in that town. They came at night to perpetrate that wickedness, and there you'll see it specifically in Genesis 19, verse 5. So I'm saying that the believers will go through the tribulation, not as this pre-trib people are saying. They'll go through tribulation, go through torment, the disgust, and even worse, of seeing open sodomy. And we've seen this now in a society. It's a common thing, homosexuality and sodomy. And at the 11th hour, Jesus comes and raptures or rescues the believers. So there's a pattern in the Bible of other stories also that God doesn't come and respond immediately. It's almost like people's faith is being tested, and whoever falls, and whoever stands. And at the very last minute or the 11th hour, God rescues his people. Going back to Lot, the warning from the angels to Lot and his family said, don't look back. So they left in a rush, in a hurry, but Lot's family, wife, turned around and looked behind her at what was happening, the brimstone and fire that was falling on Sodom and Gomorrah, and she turned into a pillar of salt. That story is even taught to Sunday school children. So what am I saying? I'm saying that the pre-tribulation people will believe in rapture to rescue them before persecution and suffering is error. It's a doctrinal belief that is based on a misinterpretation of Scripture as a whole. And unfortunately, a great many Christians are taught this heresy and believe it intrinsically. The danger of this is that they don't prepare themselves spiritually for the tribulation, which we find is confirmed in Matthew 24, specifically from verse 8 to 10. So there is evidence that the believers will suffer, and the point is that those who endure to the end will be saved, but those who do not endure, like this group that are not prepared, will end up falling. What comes to mind is the story of the 10 virgins in Matthew 25. Read these stories. These stories I'm mentioning to you to confirm what I'm saying to you. 5 were prepared with oil in their lamps, and 5 were not prepared with oil in their lamps. And the key word is preparedness. If we have a false belief that we'll be whisked away and rescued before torment and suffering of tribulation, and because of that belief we don't prepare ourselves spiritually for those circumstances, we very much are in danger of not enduring to the end and falling. In the book of Revelation, there's reference to in chapter 2 and I think chapter 3, where it's talked about 7 churches, where Jesus Christ, through John of Patmos, writing the book of Revelation, explains about or describes these churches. But the interesting part about it is that at the end of every church, description, there's words of encouragement to say that he who endures to the end shall receive the reward. So there's something about endurance, and endurance coupled with the word preparedness. You cannot endure if you are not prepared. You cannot be prepared if you've got a false belief um, based on a fallacy, based on a whimsical notion that you'll be rescued, you're not destined to suffer. All through history, way back to the time of Paul and the apostles, the Christians were persecuted by the Romans very badly. So there's no pattern to say that we will not suffer as believers. So I hope you understand what I'm saying to you, that this is a very important concept, um, extremely important. It's, as I said, it's a matter of life and death. I took the point of saying what many people say: does it matter? Does it matter? Because all I need to do is this and that and that and that. But it does matter. It matters so much that it's a point of life and death. So read those scriptures I've indicated. Test for yourself what I'm saying, and have a great day further.